David was a wonderful friend to have. I mean, we used to have a lot of wonderful, fun-loving, I could always depend on him. He was solid as a rock.
Was there a hidden truth behind the Temptations' success? After decades of whispers, Otis Williams may have just confirmed what fans have always suspected. Allegations, rivalries, and a shocking moment on tour. This changes everything. Dive into the untold story and make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss out. Picture this. The Temptations arrive at an auditorium in Columbia, South Carolina. They're ready to perform, but what they see stops them cold. A rope splits the audience straight down the middle. On one side, black fans. On the other hand, white. It wasn't just a line, it was a message. Otis Williams and the group looked at each other in disbelief. "This is 1960-something, right?" one of them muttered. But they didn't back out. They stepped onto that stage and sang their hearts out. The crowd? Silent at first, but then united in applause. That moment, Otis never forgot it. And he's just now speaking about what it meant. Otis Miles Jr. wasn't always surrounded by flashing lights and screaming fans. He grew up in Texarkana, a small town quieter than most. But when his family moved to Detroit, everything changed. The city was alive with sound. Music blasted from storefronts, clubs, and street corners. It wasn't just a place, it was a rhythm. And young Otis, he felt like he belonged in it. Soon he was chasing every opportunity he could find, meeting other young talents who dreamed just like he did. He wasn't famous yet, but something inside told him. This was where legends were born. It started small. A few young guys, some big ideas, and a whole lot of talent. Otis joined up with some friends to form a group, The Distance. They weren't just singing for fun, they meant business. They practiced hard, crafted a sound people started to notice, and even scored a local hit. But behind the scenes, things weren't perfect. Management issues began to pile up. One of their songs was sold off, without the group even knowing. Otis was frustrated, but sometimes those disappointments push you toward your biggest break. And that break? It was waiting just around the corner. After one of their performances at a local community center, Otis got handed something simple, a business card. No promises, no big speeches, just a number and a name, Berry Gordy. At the time, Gordy wasn't the icon we know now. But Otis had a feeling this was important. He kept the card. Not long after, when the issues with his old group came to a head, he made the call. It wasn't dramatic, it was smart. And that smart move? It led Otis and his friends right into the most legendary music label of its time, Motown. Motown wasn't just a label, it was a powerhouse. When Otis and the guys walked through those doors, they weren't alone. Smokey Robinson, Marvin Gaye, and the Supremes were all under that same roof, building a sound that would take over the world. The energy was undeniable. And Otis, he soaked it all in. He knew this was the place where dreams became reality. If you were ready to put in the work, Motown demanded excellence. And that's exactly what the Temptations gave. But even in a room full of stars, their journey was anything but easy. A few member changes later, the Temptations were officially born. Otis, David Ruffin, Eddie Kendricks, Paul Williams, and Melvin Franklin. 5 voices, 1 vision. Their rehearsals were intense, their choreography, flawless, and their harmonies, like nothing anyone had heard before. But what made them special wasn't just talent, it was how they fit together. Each voice added something different, yet together they created magic. Fans couldn't get enough. Songs started climbing the charts. But even as the lights grew brighter, tension started to creep in, because not everyone was happy sharing that spotlight. David Ruffin was a star in his own right. No one doubted that. His voice could light up a room. But his presence, it could also spark conflict. He wanted more say, more control. And while the others focused on the group, Ruffin started focusing on Ruffin. Otis tried to hold things together. He wasn't the lead singer, but he had a different role. He was the glue. Still, tensions rose, rehearsals got harder, trust got thinner. And one day, David made a move that would threaten to tear the whole thing apart. Inspired by another act's rebranding at Motown, David had an idea. Rename the group David Ruffin and the Temptations. He believed he deserved top billing. But to Otis and the rest of the group, that wasn't what they stood for. They had built this together. Changing the name felt like erasing that. Otis stood firm, the name stayed. But the unity? It was starting to crack out. That one request, simple on the surface, opened the door to a whole storm of tension. And it wasn't long before things reached a breaking point. It wasn't just the name. David started missing rehearsals. Sometimes he didn't show up for shows at all. The group tried to stay patient, but every missed step brought them closer to a decision they didn't want to make. Then it happened. David skipped a performance in Cleveland, just didn't show. That was it. Otis and the rest made the call. They would move on without him. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was necessary. They needed someone who would show up, not just in voice, but in commitment. David was officially out. At one of Dennis Edwards' first shows with the group, the unexpected happened. Right in the middle of a performance, David showed up, uninvited. He walked onto the stage, took the mic, and started singing like he never left. The crowd went wild, unsure if it was planned. It wasn't. Otis and the others stood frozen. It was awkward, intense, and unforgettable. After that, they had to increase security just to keep David off stage. For a while, he kept trying, sneaking in, interrupting. It was clear he wasn't ready to let go. But neither was Otis. While they were dealing with David, something else was bubbling. Eddie Kendricks, the smooth tenor with a voice like silk, was growing distant. He didn't like the group's shift toward a funkier, more psychedelic sound. He missed the ballads, the soft harmonies, and he had concerns about money, about direction, about loyalty. He started questioning leadership, started pulling back. And when you lose trust within a group, things get shaky. Otis saw the signs, but holding it all together was starting to feel impossible. The glue was thinning. Eddie had an idea, radical at the time. He wanted the group to stop performing, just pause everything until Motown opened their books to independent accountants. Otis and Melvin, they shut it down fast. To them, it felt like a betrayal. Arguments grew louder, performances got tense, and then, in a quiet moment at the Copacabana, Eddie made his choice. He walked away. No big send-off, no announcement, just gone. Otis agreed it was for the best, but that didn't make it any easier. Another chapter closed, another brother lost. As members left and new ones joined, one thing stayed constant: Otis. He was never the flashiest, rarely the lead, but he was the one who kept going, the one who kept calling rehearsals. I kept answering calls, I kept believing in the music. He and Melvin had made a promise: no matter what, they'd stick with it. And Otis never broke that promise, even when the road got rough, even when the group felt like it might fall apart. Otis held the torch and kept it burning. Outside the studio, Otis lived a life filled with both love and struggle. He married, became a father, and even got engaged to another rising star. But the music life? It was demanding. Relationships suffered, dreams clashed. Still, Otis never let go of his purpose. He wasn't in it for fame. He was in it for something bigger. His journey wasn't perfect, but it was honest. And that honesty shaped who he became, not just as a performer, but as a person. In the 80s, just when people thought the Temptations had had their moment, they made a comeback. A collaboration with Rick James brought fresh energy. A televised special with the Four Tops reintroduced them to a new generation. Suddenly, they were back on the charts, with songs like Treat Her Like a Lady. Otis had guided them through another transformation. Not everyone could do that, but he had the patience, the experience, and the vision to lead. And he did. Years passed, music changed, but Otis, still there, still performing, still recording. In 2022, he helped release Temptations 60, a celebration of 6 decades of music, featuring their longtime collaborator Smokey Robinson. The message was clear. The Temptations weren't just history. They were still making it. Otis never gave up, never walked away. He honored the past while embracing the future. That promise he made? It's still being kept. For decades, Otis Williams stood at the center of one of the most iconic groups in music history. And yet, he remained mostly silent about what really went on behind closed doors. Not because he had nothing to say, far from it, but because some stories felt too personal, too heavy, too sacred to just casually throw into an interview. Fans saw the glitz, the polished performances, the gold records. But Otis saw everything else: the late-night arguments, the missed shows, the emotional weight of holding together a group of big personalities in a world that didn't always make it easy to succeed. So what was the big secret? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was years of holding space between conflict and unity. It was the pressure of making decisions that might disappoint friends but keep the group alive. It was knowing how much people loved the Temptations and not wanting to break the illusion. For years, he carried moments no one else spoke about, like how it really felt to let David Ruffin go, not because he wanted to, but because he had to. How he wrestled with guilt when things didn't work out with Eddie Kendricks, a friend turned critic, or how it tore him up watching Paul Williams struggle, knowing there wasn't a simple fix. And then there were the things no one outside the group could understand. The pressure from Motown, the expectations to keep producing hit after hit, the fear of being forgotten when the sound of music changed, the need to reinvent while keeping the soul intact. Otis wasn't the one writing the headlines or singing the biggest solos, but he was the one making the hardest calls. And here's the twist. While fans praised the group's sound and style, they didn't always realize that Otis was quietly sacrificing his spotlight to keep the machine running. The secret he's finally started sharing? It's not just a moment or confession, it's the truth about what leadership really costs, and how that weight shaped not only the group's journey, but his own identity as an artist and man. In interviews, Otis has begun to open up more than ever before. He's talked about the loneliness that can come with being the last man standing, about how being the organizer meant sometimes you had to be the one everyone disliked, just to keep the group from falling apart, about how he chose legacy over ego time and time again. There were plenty of chances for him to walk away, but he didn't. And now, years later, with most of the original members gone, he started peeling back the curtain. He doesn't share these stories to get sympathy. He shares them because they matter. They matter to the fans who only saw part of the picture. They matter to the history books that too often overlook the ones doing the invisible work. And maybe most importantly, they matter to the next generation, because leadership isn't just about applause. It's about responsibility. And sometimes the strongest voice is the one that sings quietly but never stops. Otis waited decades to reveal these layers, not out of fear, but out of respect. Now that time has passed, he can speak honestly, with perspective, not to call anyone out, but to honor the truth. And the truth is powerful. It reminds us that even legends are human, that even the smoothest harmonies are built on compromise, patience, and persistence. Behind every gold record, there's someone losing sleep trying to make it all work. Otis carried all of that, and now he's finally ready to share what it cost him and what it gave him in return. Otis Williams is more than a founding member of a famous group. He's the reason the Temptations survived the storms. He made tough choices, lost close friends, and held on when others let go. So here's the question for you. What would you have done in his shoes? Would you have kept the peace, spoken out sooner? Let us know in the comments. And if you want more behind-the-scenes stories like this one, hit that subscribe button, because the music, it's just the beginning.